Have you ever reached the end of the month staring at your bank statement, unable to figure out where the money went? It's not a lack of effort. It's not a lack of will. It's a pain that millions of Americans carry in silence. The feeling of working hard, of not throwing money away, of trying and trying again, and still reaching the 25th with an empty wallet and a zero balance. Like the paycheck passes through your hands and vanishes before it even has a chance to warm up. I know that pain, and today I'm going to tell you the story of Benedict, a warehouse clerk from Dayton, Ohio, 41 years old, thin mustache, glasses held together with electrical tape, a salary of $800 a month, steady, honest, on time, and that for years had disappeared every single month before the 25th without him being able to explain exactly how, until one day, in a situation that humiliated him deeply, the kind you never forget, Benedict met an old man sitting under a maple tree, and that man showed him something that fit inside an old envelope. It wasn't a banking secret. It wasn't an investment. It wasn't anything any expert had invented. It was a method so simple, so humble, so unglamorous, that when you hear it, you're going to squint your eyes and say, "How did I never think of this before?" Before I tell you, I only ask one thing: subscribe to this channel, because here we don't pass the time. Here we change lives, one story at a time. Stay with me. Because Benedict's story begins with a piece of paper inside a drawer and ends with $38,000 in an account that nobody believed he'd ever be able to have. Dayton's, Ohio, 2009, a city that grew too fast and still didn't quite know what it was. Not quite a small town, not quite a big city, a working-class place where the Rust Belt meets the Great Plains, and the summer heat arrives before 6 in the morning, heavy, sticky, the kind that soaks through your shirt before you even leave the house. The streets of Benedict's neighborhood were patched asphalt, with potholes that came back every winter. The houses were simple brick, most of them painted, a few with the bare brick still showing, with chain-link fences and dogs in the yard. A working-class neighborhood, the kind of place where everybody gets up early, comes home late, and still never seems to have anything left over. Benedict left home at 6:20 every day. Short-sleeve button shirt, pressed carefully. He pressed it himself because his wife Faye worked too early in the morning for that. Dark slacks. Dress shoes with a risoled bottom he'd had fixed twice at the same cobbler. Prescription glasses with a black frame that had broken at the left hinge and that he'd fixed with black electrical tape, and that stayed that way for 8 months before he could replace them. At the warehouse, he managed the inventory with a precision his supervisor called accountant stuff. Every bolt had its place. Every invoice had its order. Every incoming and outgoing item was logged in a hardback notebook he'd bought and organized himself with cardboard dividers. But at home, the money had no such order. Faye worked as a school aide at a local elementary school. She made $100. Together they had $10,900 a month, an income that plenty of families would call enough. But there was always something: the electric bill that came in higher, the younger kid's prescription, the fan that broke, the mother-in-law's birthday, the car tire that was older than the marriage. The oldest son, Joshua, was 12 years old and wanted to be an engineer. He'd been saying it since he was 8, with the seriousness of someone who had already decided. Benedict listened, nodded, and felt a warm weight in his chest. Not pride, doubt. And where's the money for that going to come from? It was the question he never asked out loud, but it was there every night when he turned out the light and lay staring at the ceiling in the dark, listening to the ceiling fan spin and mentally counting what had come in and what had gone out, never able to understand why the two never added up right. It was a Monday in March when the notice went up on the break room board. Benedict read it twice, then a third time, more slowly, the way you do when you're hoping the words will change between readings. The company will offer a $2,000 bonus to employees who present proof of an active savings account with a minimum balance of $500. Deadline, 90 days. $2,000, in a company envelope with his name on it, if he could show he had savings. Benedict went to the restroom, closed the door, stood in front of the mirror for a length of time he couldn't measure. He had no savings account, never had. In 20 years of steady paychecks hitting the same account on the same date every month, he had never managed to keep enough to maintain an active savings account. Not because he wasted money, or at least that's what he told himself, but the money disappeared. It always disappeared. That afternoon, during his break, Benedict went to the bank. He sat across from the branch manager, a guy in his early 30s, button-down shirt, the smile of someone who sells products, not solves problems, and explained the situation. "So, you'd like to open a savings account now and have $500 in it in 90 days, the manager repeated, with a tone that was trying to be polite, but couldn't quite hide the surprise. "That's right," Benedict said. "How much were you thinking of starting with?" Benedict looked down at his own hand on the table, hesitated. "Whatever I can?" The manager typed something, looked at the screen, brought his eyes back to Benedict with an expression that said everything without needing words. "Mr. Benedict, based on the account history, your average monthly balance over the past 12 months has been $47. A pause. "This is going to be very difficult." Benedict walked out of the bank with the sun beating on the back of his neck and his stomach turned upside down. $47 average balance in 12 months on a fat $800 monthly paycheck. The following week, he tried cutting expenses. He stopped getting coffee at the diner before work, $3 a day, about $60 a month. He cancelled his phone data plan and switched to Wi-Fi only at home. He asked Faye to reduce the grocery spending. Faye looked at him with the patience of someone who'd heard that conversation before. "Benedict, I'm already buying the minimum. If I cut any more, we don't eat." She didn't say it with anger. She said it with the calm of someone who knows the truth and doesn't need to shout for it to be true. On day 30, Benedict had saved $110. He was feeling good about it until the electric bill came in $87 higher because of the summer heat, and Joshua's sneakers blew out at the sole and couldn't be worn any longer. The $110 was gone in one afternoon. On day 40D, he walked through the break room and saw his co-worker Ernie, 28 years old, shipping clerk, making $400, calmly sticking his savings account proof to the HR form with a relaxed smile. "You already have it?" Benedict asked, unable to hide his surprise. "I've had it for 2 years, Ernie replied, matter-of-factly. "I put something away every month since my first paycheck. Not a lot, but I save." Benedict went back to the warehouse, sat in his chair, stared at the inventory control notebook, the one where every bolt had its place, every invoice its order, every entry and exit tracked with precision, and for the first time he understood with a clarity that stung. He had managed the company's inventory with more discipline than he had ever managed his own life. That night, after Joshua went to bed, he sat alone at the kitchen table, picked up a sheet of paper, tried to write down the month's expenses, gave up halfway through because he couldn't remember half of what he'd spent. He crumpled the paper, threw it in the trash, put his head in his hands. "God," he said quietly, in the silence of the empty kitchen, "help me understand what I'm doing wrong." The following Saturday, Benedict went to the farmer's market in his neighborhood to pick up some groceries. It wasn't something he usually did. That was Faye's job, but she had stayed home with a headache, and he went in her place, with the list written on the back of a grocery receipt and the feeling of someone who isn't quite sure what he's doing. On the way out of the market, carrying 2 bags, he stopped under a large maple tree that had grown crooked on the sidewalk, the kind of tree nobody planted on purpose, that had just come up over the years and that everyone had long since stopped noticing. The shade was generous. The March heat was too heavy to pass up. An old man was sitting on a concrete bench at the base of the tree, 70-something, maybe older, hard to tell. Worn straw hat on his head, white long-sleeve button shirt despite the heat, beige slacks. He was holding an old brown envelope in his hand, the kind the post office used to use decades ago, with edges yellowed by time. Benedict sat down on the other end of the bench, set the bags on the ground, exhaled. The old man looked at the bags, then at him. "Rough week?" he asked, with a calm voice that seemed to be in no hurry to get anywhere. Benedict didn't know why he answered. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was last night's prayer still echoing. "I can't save money," he said, simply, like someone finally setting down a weight they'd been carrying for a long time. "I earn every month. It goes every month. I don't know what I'm doing wrong." The old man looked at the envelope in his own hand, turned it slowly between his fingers. "You work in the warehouse, don't you?" Benedict frowned. He hadn't said that. "I do. And at the warehouse, when a shipment comes in, what's the first thing you do?" "I log it, sort it, put everything in its place before releasing it for use." The old man nodded slowly. "Then you already know the method." He held out the brown envelope. "Everything in its place, before releasing it for use." Benedict looked at the envelope. It was empty, clean inside, simple. "I don't follow." "When your paycheck comes in," the old man explained, with the patience of someone who has said this many times without rushing, "you take an envelope, put inside it the amount you're going to save, seal it, put it away. Only after that do you pay your bills and live on what's left, not the other way around." "Never the other way around. But what if there's nothing left for the envelope?" "Then there's a little left for the envelope. $10, $20. The amount doesn't matter at the start. What matters is the order. The envelope comes first. Always first." He paused. "It's not how much you save. It's saving before you spend the rest." "It's not how much you save. It's saving before you spend the rest." Benedict stared at the envelope for a long time. "And that sounds too simple to work." The old man smiled, a slow smile, unhurried, from someone who knows that objection well. "The things that work always seem too simple to people who are used to making things complicated." Benedict stood up to grab his bags. When he turned around to say thank you, the concrete bench was empty. The straw hat was gone. The white shirt was gone. Only the maple tree's shade remained, wide and still, as if nothing had happened. But the envelope was on the ground, beside the bench. Benedict bent down, picked it up, folded it carefully, slipped it into his shirt pocket. "It's not how much you save. It's saving before you spend the rest." The following Monday, Benedict got his paycheck. Before paying a single bill, before stopping at the grocery store, before doing anything else, he went to the dresser drawer in the bedroom, took out the brown envelope he'd brought from the market, and put $80 inside it, folded it, sealed it with tape, wrote on the front in ballpoint pen, "March, do not open." Put it in the back of the drawer, under a folded blanket, $80. An amount he himself thought was ridiculous as he closed the drawer, but it was there, before everything, before the bills, before the groceries, before the world came calling. It's not how much you save. It's saving before you spend the rest. In the first week, the refrigerator started making a strange noise. Benedict stood in front of it for a while, hand on his chin, calculating. He called a repairman. The repairman charged $60 to replace a small part. Benedict paid it out of pocket, tightening the rest of the month. But he didn't open the drawer. In the second week, Joshua needed money for a school field trip, $35. Benedict felt his hand moving automatically toward the drawer and stopped, breathed. Worked overtime on Friday, earned $40, paid for the trip, didn't open the drawer. It's not how much you save, it's saving before you spend the rest. At the end of March, Benedict opened the drawer, took out the envelope, weighed it in his hand without opening it. It was there, intact, the $80 he'd put in at the start of the month, untouched, with no excuse. It was the first time in years he had saved something, and it had stayed saved. In April, He put in $120. In May, $150 because he'd managed 3 overtime shifts and had decided that half of that would go straight into the envelope. Faye asked what was going on. He showed her the drawer. She looked at the envelope, then at him, with an expression he couldn't name right away, but which he later recognized as relief. "Since when?" she asked. "Since March." She didn't say anything more. She just closed the drawer slowly, as if what was inside were fragile. But in the 6th month, the real test came. The car broke down, transmission problem. The mechanic said a number that made Benedict's stomach drop. 780. Without the car, he couldn't get to work on time. Without getting to work on time, he risked getting written up. Without the job, everything would fall apart. Ernie passed him in the warehouse hallway and said, without any bad intention, "Benedict, just take out a loan through HR. They spread it over 12 payments. You barely feel it." Benedict stayed quiet, inside. The old voice came back, the voice that said there was no way out, that this is just how the system works, that everybody does it this way. That night, he went to the drawer, counted the envelopes, 6 total, 1 per month, opened each one, added it all up on the bed with Faye beside him, the two of them counting together in silence, $680. They were $100 short. $100 away from not needing to borrow money for the first time in years. Faye got up, went to her purse, came back with $100 folded in her hand. "I saved some on the side," she said simply. "Didn't know what for, but I saved it." Benedict looked at his wife, looked at the money, looked at the envelopes spread on the bed, and for the first time in a long time, he cried. Not from sadness, from recognition. From seeing that his discipline had created, without him realizing it, a culture inside the home, that the envelope had taught without needing to speak. It's not how much you save, it's saving before you spend the rest. The car was fixed. No loan, no monthly payment, no interest, nobody else's name on the contract. In January of the 2nd year, Benedict traded the envelopes for a small metal box with a lock that Joshua had been given as a gift and never used. In July of the 2nd year, the box had become an account at a local credit union in the neighborhood, and at the end of the 3rd year, 36 months after that Saturday under the maple tree, Benedict opened the credit union statement and stared at the number for a length of time that was too long to be normal. $38,000. It's not how much you save. It's saving before you spend the rest. With the $38,000, Benedict bought the land. A 200-square-meter lot in a new development on the outskirts of the city, with the deed in his name and Faye's name, recorded with the county. Everything legal and above board. The kind of document his father had never had. The kind of paper nobody could take away. The afternoon he signed, he stood on the empty lot. Packed earth, sparse weeds, a small tree in the corner he didn't know the name of, and stayed quiet for a while. The late afternoon sun lit up the earth. Joshua was at his side, not talking, as if he also understood that the moment called for silence. "Dad," the boy said at last, "how long did it take you to save all this?" 3 years. Joshua thought about it. On the same paycheck the whole time. On the same paycheck the whole time. The boy looked at the land. Then he looked at his father with an expression Benedict recognized. It was the same one he'd seen in the mirror that afternoon when the bank manager told him his average balance was $47. But reversed. Not shame. Determination. "Teach me," Joshua said. Benedict went to the car, opened the glove compartment, pulled out a new brown envelope, bought in a pack of 20 from the office supply store, and handed it to his son. "The envelope comes first," he said. "Always first. It's not how much you save, it's saving before you spend the rest." The following week, Ernie stopped Benedict in the warehouse hallway with a different look. No longer the usual calm co-worker, but someone who'd heard something and needed to confirm it. "Benedict, Joshua told my son you bought land outright. Is that true?" It's true. On an 4,800 paycheck. On an 4,800 paycheck. Ernie was quiet for a moment. Then, how? Benedict opened the warehouse cabinet drawer, pulled out a brown envelope, placed it in his co-worker's hand. The envelope comes first, he said, always first, and went back to work without another word. That same month, the new warehouse manager, the same one who had created the bonus program 3 years earlier, called Benedict in for a conversation. Not about work, about the land, about the envelopes, about the method. You did this with no app, no spreadsheet, no financial advisor, with envelopes from the office supply store, Benedict replied, $4.99 for a pack of 20. The manager laughed, but it was the laugh of someone who had just understood something important, the $2,000 bonus that had started it all. Benedict had received it on time, 3 years earlier. He had put the whole thing in that month's envelope and had forgotten to mention it to anyone, because by then it had become the most natural thing in the world. It's not how much you save, it's saving before you spend the rest. And this is where I leave Benedict's story and speak directly to you, because you didn't stay until the end by accident. You stayed because you know that feeling, the statement at zero, the paycheck that disappears before the 25th, the question that hurts more than any bill. If I work this hard, why do I have nothing saved? Benedict earned $800, the same paycheck for 3 years, no promotion, no inheritance, no financial miracle, and he saved $38,000 with envelopes from the office supply store at $4.99 a pack. The secret wasn't the amount, it was the order. It's not how much you save, it's saving before you spend the rest, because the money you decide to save after paying everything never actually makes it. There's always a bill waiting. There's always an emergency with your family's name on it. The system was built to consume everything before you ever get a chance to keep any of it. Benedict reversed the order, and that simple reversal, almost ridiculous in how simple it is, changed everything. Not because he was special, but because he was faithful every month with what he had, without waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. And the Word already said this long ago, a faithful man will abound with blessings. Proverbs 28:20. Faithfulness isn't a talent, it's a repeated decision. It's a sealed envelope every month, even when the month is tight, even when the voice says it won't work. So now I ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly right here in the comments. Do you have an envelope in your life? Right below. It's not how much I save. It's saving before I spend the rest. That public commitment, as small as it seems, could be the first envelope of a story your children will tell someday. If this story touched you, if you saw yourself in Benedict, in the empty statement, in the quiet humiliation of working hard and having nothing saved, then do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel, because here we don't pass the time. Here we change lives, one story at a time. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. A friend, a brother, a co-worker who reaches the end of the month not knowing where the money went. Sometimes a simple story does what no spreadsheet ever can. And don't go just yet, because the next video on this channel might be exactly what you need to hear today. May God bless you, your family, and every envelope you seal with faith. Until the next story.